part 2 of my video series on Arch, Openbox, and Slim. And I promise you this time around we'll actually get to Openbox. We got a few more things to install on our Arch emulation before we get Openbox up and running, but yeah, we'll get there this video definitely. So we'll have Openbox installed and we'll start it and take a look at it. But like I say, first we got a few other things to do, so let's get to it. Okay, let's get started here. There's a few things we need to do before we can actually run Openbox. Some of them have nothing to really do with Openbox. They have to do with it. I'm using a virtual machine under VirtualBox, but you'll see as we go along. And in reality, these can be done in a variety of orders. The order I'm doing it in is just because I'm going along working on it. If I would have thought about it, I probably would have done a lot of things differently. But first thing we're going to do here is we're going to check that we have a system clock synchronization, which we don't. And if we look at our time sync settings, there's no file because, well, no file, there's no time sync settings because the service isn't running. We didn't start it by default. So what we're going to do is enable it and then start it. This is one of those things I could have probably done after I configured it, but you'll see as we move along because I have to restart it. So I'm going to enable System D Time Sync D as part of the System D service package. And then I'm going to start it. Now we want to edit the configuration file, which is found in the etc System D subfolder. And it's Time Sync D configuration, surprisingly. We're going to uncomment the NTP and fallback NTP. There's already several Arch fallback NTPs, but we're going to list several other NTP servers. They'll be in the form of 0.pool.ntp.org, and it'll be actually 0 through 3 that we're going to enter here. We'll go ahead and save this file once we're done. And as I said, now I'm going to have to restart the NTP, the time sync D server. So I'll issue the restart command through system control. Now when we take a look at our time sync information, we actually have something printed out, and we can see we've actually tied into the main server 0.pool.ntp.org, and we've got its IP address here. So should be receiving time sync signals, and when we look at it, it should be yes now. This will make sure that our Pac-Man stays in sync and our keyring stays in sync. One of the problems we have, as I mentioned during the install, is I'm getting out of sync and then keyring's unwritable. This should avoid that problem. Next, we want to go ahead and update our install. Generally, before you do a lot of work, you really want to update the install the latest packages. The server was a little slow today, but that happens from time to time. All right, now everything's finally updated. Well, is updated. So moving forward, we're going to go ahead and install sudo and then create a normal user. Once sudo is installed, we'll use vi sudo to edit the sudo user file. Once here, we'll scroll down to the bottom and we'll uncomment the wheel group. You also see a sudo group, and you'll see a wheel no password. We don't want to use a no password. Sudo is not used in Arch. It's used in other distributions. I mean, you could add the group, but the wheel group should already be in our group file. So we'll go ahead and save this. Then we'll take a look at our group file in the etc directory, and we'll see that the wheel group is already there. Yep, there it is. So now we're going to add a user. We're going to use the user add with the tac M option to create a home directory, the tac C option to give an actual name, and then tac G to add the wheel group, and then our user ID, which is RT. And if we look back in our group file, we can see RT has been added to the wheel group. So everything checks here. And RT should now have sudo privileges. So next we want to go ahead and set a password for RT so we can actually log in. And then we'll use the password space RT command to do that. Now we're going to go ahead and install Xorg server. The reason we're doing this now is we're in VirtualBox, and then virtual guest utilities will check to see if the X server is there. So we want to make sure it's there before we install the VirtualBox guest utilities, which if you're on a real system, you won't have to worry about doing. So now we're going to go ahead and install the VirtualBox guest utilities. Guest utilities will give us some extra abilities, especially when it comes to graphical screen resolution, which will be nice. We're going to go ahead and enable them with the system control. VBox service is what they're run under. Now we're going to go ahead and reboot. And this time we're going to go ahead and log in as RT. Since we did give him sudo privileges, we will make use of that. Should, whenever possible, use a normal user as opposed to root user for doing anything. It's just safer. And I'm not going to give you a security lecture. Okay. We're going to install a few helper apps because Xorg, when we try and run it before we install Openbox, we'll call them up. It's specifically going to call up Xterm and Xclock, or it's Xorg Xclock, and we're going to install the Xorg X-init package. This will allow us to run the startx command. Remember, we haven't installed the window manager, or excuse me, we haven't installed the display manager yet. After we get through configuration of Openbox, we'll look at installing the display manager and configuring it. But for right now, we're going to use startx. And for that, you need the Xorg-Xinit package. We also installed some miscellaneous fonts just so they're there because Xorg may call them or Openbox may call them, and we actually want to see something when we start this. And the Xorg fonts aren't the prettiest in the world. So we're going to go ahead and install the Deja Vu fonts. You can install your favorite TTF fonts here. I'm just using Deja Vu because I like them. These will come into play later when we start adding applications. All right, I think we've got everything we need here. Oh yeah, Xorg Xclock. Yes, that's a quick one. Now we issue the startx command. We don't have a window manager, but we'll see a couple of X terms without borders. We'll see an Xclock in the upper right corner. This is what you see if you don't have the window manager. We'll look and see in a minute that it's actually looking for the TWM window manager, which we haven't installed. So we are going to finally now install Openbox. Once it's installed, we're going to run it through the xinit script, which is in /etc/X11/xinit directory. We're going to run it through that program, which is what startx uses. So we need to edit that file. We need to do it as root, so we will use sudo. In our configuration, we'll set up configurations in our home directory. Anyways, if we scroll to the bottom of this file, you can see where it wants to launch TWM, xclock, and a couple of X terms. We're going to go execute Openbox-sessions because that'll let us use Openbox's auto start. And then the rest of these lines we're going to get rid of because we don't want to be launching any programs at startup except through the auto start in Openbox. So now let's run our startx command. And there we have it. We've got a funky sized window because we were using a text screen. You can see the Openbox menu system here. This is a static menu system. A lot of the stuff isn't installed, but one of the reasons we installed Xterm is because that's on the default menu. Sizing is not going to be an issue. We'll just need to do some resizing of our windows. So we'll go ahead and reboot the system, and we'll go ahead and change our window from, we'll basically reduce the magnification we set her way back in the last video. We'll set it back to 100%, and then we'll go to full screen mode. You can see the VBox menu down the bottom here. Now we'll issue our startx command. And you can see we can run the menu now from anywhere on the screen. So the Openbox takes up the whole screen. There's our VBox menus. And we're where we want to be right now. We've got Openbox running, full screen, and we're going to configure it in our next go around. There you go. We got Openbox up and running. I mean, the configuration is not the greatest, but I told you we get to it in this particular segment of this video series. So next time around, we're going to look at configuration. There'll be some additional programs we'll need. We'll talk about both manual configuration and automatic configuration and themes and things like that. So join us next time. Thanks for watching.